earth angel, oops, I mean, angels we have heard on high, angels from the realms of glory. Well, you can. Hark the herald angels sing. Okay, I can go on and on and on, but you know what I mean. All these nice angelic stories, and this is the time of the year for angel stories, right? Well, we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and soon Christmas around the corner, so I thought, what a perfect time to talk about angels. And I think most of us believe we have a guardian angel, possibly, right? I do anyway. I'm sure I do. I know I do. So, and here are a few people who are telling their tales of their guardian angel. First one, Dee Baylor Baby. She says she entered the hospital in 1994 with acute pain from a fibroid tumor, ouch, the size of a grapefruit in her uterus. The surgery was successful, but more complicated than expected. Don't you just like that word, complicated? Not. And she was in horrible pain, she recalls. She had an allergic reaction to the morphine they gave her. And the doctors tried to counteract that with other medications, which made a bad experience even worse. After receiving more pain medication, she was able to sleep for a few hours. She says, I awoke in the middle of the night, and according to the wall clock, it was 2:45. I heard someone speaking and realized someone was at my bedside. There was a young woman with short brown hair and wearing a white hospital staff uniform. She was sitting and reading aloud from the Bible. I said to her, Am I all right? Why are you sitting here with me? And she stopped reading and simply said, I was sent here to make sure you would be all right. You are going to be fine. Now you should get some rest and go back to sleep. She began to read again and I went back to sleep. The next morning, I asked the doctor and the nurses who the nurse was in my room, and they said, there was no one here with you. To this day, she says, I believe I was visited by my guardian angel, and the time on my clock that night said 2:45 a.m. is the exact time it says I was born on my birth certificate. So, does it have meaning? I'm sure it does. I think mine was like 11:15 or something around the 11 o'clock hour when I was born. So I'm sure it does have meaning. Here's another one called Angel Nurse. In 1998, Luke, who was 8, was diagnosed with bone cancer. And sometimes it happens when you have cancer that you can come down with an infection, which meant he had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. And then something remarkable happened while he was in the hospital. One evening, Luke's mother was sitting at his bedside, quietly praying as he slept, and then a nurse came into the room to take his temperature. But the nurse was wearing an old-fashioned uniform of the type that would have been common around in the 1960s. The nurse noticed that Luke's mother had a Bible. She said that she was a Christian and that she would pray for Luke. They never saw her again, and nobody in the hospital knew about her. But Luke was fully recovered, and he's now 29 and completely cured of his cancer. And of course, totally believes that she was his guardian angel. I would too, right? Here's another one. Angel Money, it's called. Ellie, and the lady telling the story, from the summer of January, because this is in Australia and summer is totally turned around, right? In Melbourne, Australia, this happened. It was late afternoon and Ellie was gathering the family laundry from the clothesline. And there was a sudden Willy, which is a dust devil, what we call a dust devil here. And she said, it raced past me and I saw something blue whirling in the middle of the dust and leaves and managed to get a hold of it. She was happily surprised when it was a $10 note. Yay, free money, right? A few days later, Ellie was in the backyard checking on her garden tomatoes when she spotted something lying on the grass. She was astonished to find it was a $20 note. Not long afterwards, in another part of the garden, she found a $5 note and another $20 note nestled among the leaves of the daylilies. Yay, right? She told her family, but they didn't know where it came from. Then a few days later, one of her sons came in with an ear-to-ear grin and another $20 note he just found on top of the compost heap. I think somebody is just leaving money out there. And another week or so later, she was cleaning under her bed and found a 50-cent coin. Yay. It reminds me of a story when, well, my experience. I was getting my hair, after my hair I got done one time. And we were going to Tom Thumb. And the lady that was driving us was inside Tom Thumb, but I was sitting outside. Nobody was in the parking lot beside us parked. And I looked out, and I had given the hair lady like $30 or $40 for a tip, you know. Which she did good job, so why not, right? And I was looking out there, and I saw on the ground in the parking lot beside me, where nobody had been, you know. I mean, at some point, I suppose, but we didn't see anybody there. Like it was just laid in a circle. There was like quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies, all just like in a circle laying there. And I said, thank you, and I picked it up. Yeah, I did. And this next one is from Deb from San Bernardino, California, from 1980. Back in 1980, Deb was a single mom with 2 infants. She occasionally needed a babysitter. Luckily, her parents only lived about 30 minutes away in Alta Loma. Deb usually dropped off her children at her parents' house, did her errands, then picked them up in the evening time. One night she picked them up about 11:30 p.m. Deb was driving her old clunker. One of the many problems, I'm sure we've all had those in the past, one of the many problems of her car was it had a broken gas gauge. Nice to have, isn't it? So she had to gas when she needed to fill it up. This night, her gas was off. And she says halfway home, it started to putter. And she said, I realized I was on empty. I pulled up at the first off-ramp I could, and it just happened to be one that was slightly uphill, of course. And almost at the top of the exit, she said, my car died, and there was no one absolutely around. There's empty fields and distant lights at a truck stop. That was about a quarter of a mile away. And there was no one outside, no one near her, no cars going by, and she couldn't carry her kids that far, and they were sleeping in the back anyway. And this was long before cell phones. She put her head on the steering wheel and just started to pray. She hadn't even finished praying when she heard a few taps on her window. When she looked up, she saw a clean-cut young man standing there, who looked to be about 21 years old. He motioned for her to roll down her window. I remember, she said, I was surprised, but not the slightest bit afraid. She said, although normally I would have been terrified. The young man was dressed well and had a fresh soap smell on it. He didn't even ask if she needed help, but instead he told her to put her car in neutral, and he would help her over the last small hill toward a place where she could get gas. I thanked him and followed his instructions. The car started moving, and I started it towards the lights of the truck stop. I turned around to thank him, but he was totally gone. Now, there was nowhere he could have gone to where I couldn't have seen him, but he was gone. You can't say that wasn't, an angel, because I believe it was. In this next story, there was a young boy. He was just 7 years old. His cousin was 5. He was really great, buddies with his little cousin. But his cousin, his 5-year-old cousin, Chetty, was really badly sick with cancer, and he later passed away. But his parents didn't want to talk to him about it, which I kind of think it's a bit wrong, I'm sure they just didn't want him to mention it and make everyone sad, but at the same time, kids need to know things, if they have questions. Well, one day they were over visiting Chetty's parents, but Chetty wasn't there anymore, of course, and he couldn't talk about it, so he just went out to play on the swings, which him and Chetty used to do all the time. And he was just sitting there thinking about the past and the way things used to be, when all of a sudden, Chetty walked up to him with a guardian angel in tow. An angel who was holding his hand. The angel had beautiful blonde hair and was dressed in a long white gown. The angel never spoke but smiled. Chetty looked at him and said, "I'm not in pain anymore." He and the angel then turned around and walked away until they disappeared. How cute is that? This next story is from a girl who was 9 years old at the time this happened, Annabelle Beam. Well, she miraculously survived a 30-foot fall while she was playing with her sister outside their Texas home. She plummeted inside a hollowed-out cottonwood tree. Now, an emergency helicopter rushed her to the hospital in Fort Worth, where brain and spinal teams were waiting for Annabelle's arrival. But astonishingly, Annabelle was unscathed. She said she met her guardian angel during the incident. She said, "I started to wake up in the tree, and I could hear the firemen's voices. And then I saw an angel that looked like a fairy. The angel then winked, and he told me, 'I'm going to leave you now, and everything is going to be all right.' The angel stayed with her, shining a light so she could see until she was rescued." Oh, you have to wonder how close angels and elementals and fairies and stuff really are. Are they really another kind of angel? Who knows? They are guardians. A woman says she was heading home with her children, driving in the slow lane. The next thing she knew, her car was her Ford Windstar. She lost control of it, and her van landed. It landed in a ditch, and it looked like a crane had put it there. She said it was in the ditch so perfectly. I felt like some force, had lifted me up and out of the ditch. I then saw a man who was so calm. He put a calmness in my heart. I never saw him again, and I still can't explain how perfectly my van was in the ditch. And this next one is from Abrishana. I always say the prayer before bed. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. Guard me, Jesus, through the night, and wake me with the morning light. I think most of us have said something like that when we were little. It actually appeared to me when I awoke out of nowhere. I saw a beautiful light filling up my room. I thought maybe somebody turned on the light, but I remembered the light in my room is very dim, I soon went back to sleep with a great feeling good sense of security. Something similar happened like that to me while I was, yes, you guessed it, in Germany one time. I was in Germany and I just had gone to bed, laid down, and I was in one of those really calm, not asleep type places, but just calm. And all of a sudden, the light turned on. I had my eyes closed now, but poof, there was so much light, and I thought, why is, my husband at the time, why is he turning on the light? So I opened my eyes to see the light on. It was totally pitch black in there, but the light was on. Maybe the light inside of me was on. I don't know, but I thought, wow, that was really, really cool. And another story I wanted to say about the little boy and his cousin, who came. There was another story. There was a couple at our church, an elder couple at the time. We knew them, but their son had died quite a few years back, even long before we knew him. And of course, they were really, really, really sad. I mean, nobody wants to outlive their kids, right? And one day it was particularly bad. And I'm not sure how he died in an accident, maybe, I don't remember. But he just came inside their house. Not a ghost, not looking like a ghost, but very physical, and told them not to be sad, that he is fine and great, and had a little conversation with them, and then he left. But I just wanted to add that in. That was so nice. Okay, here's another one. This is a nice one too. Angel in the Navy. In 1974, while stationed, and this is a Gordon Marvel telling the story, while stationed in Pearl Harbor, someone I had been drinking with spiked my wine with LSD. He did it also with several of the others. We all went back to the base barracks, and some of the guys were going crazy. I prayed for help. A sailor opened his door and asked what was wrong. I told him, and he asked me to get everyone and bring them to his room. He asked if I believed in God, and that is when I noticed I was sober. It was way too soon for the LSD to wear off. It can sometimes take 18 hours. Okay, here we go. An 18-hour experience. It had only been a few hours. I can imagine how scared they would be knowing someone spiked it with LSD. That would be really, ugh. Since our drinks have been spiked, it had just been just a few hours since their drinks had been spiked, and they're all of a sudden totally sober. The next day I went to the room to thank this guy. When I went to his room, I noticed no one had been in that room for months. Now I was in communications, and there had been no ship movements. No one but the guys who had their drinks spiked remember seeing this guy. There's been a mystery for over 40 years. The only explanation is the man was either an angel or a ghost. But because of how he spoke of God, I believe he was an angel. I know some people are going to say, well, they were on LSD, maybe they just thought they saw him. But if he helped them, who cares? Anyway, no, I believe it was an angel. This happened in Anjum, India, in the jungle. We were in this jungle at Tuljai Devi, or something like that, near Pune, India. We knew we were lost. We knew most likely we would have to spend the night there. It was around 7:30 p.m. at night. But suddenly from nowhere came a very calm and serene man. He didn't scare us at all. We followed him out of the jungle, and we knew he was either an angel or sent by an angel. And I think this is the last, no, not quite, almost the last story. The squirrel that saved my life, Jenny. I was driving down the road, approaching a major intersection. The light had been red, but just turned green as I was getting ready to approach it. I thought, oh good, I can just go straight through without stopping. That's when a squirrel ran right out in front of me. Yay. I mean, not yay. and I slammed on my brakes. No one was in front or behind me, but I had intended on going straight through the intersection, but because she had to put on her brakes, and she had to stop not to hit the squirrel. Come on, folks, you wouldn't want to hit a squirrel either. But it was good that she did, because a speeding car had run a red light in the opposite direction. If that squirrel would not have run out in front of me, that car would have hit me and killed me. The man was going at least 60 miles per hour. Maybe an angel threw a nut across the street or gave him a little poke on the rear. Or maybe the squirrel was the angel. Oh, and by the way, she says, I didn't hit the squirrel. He went on his hero way. Yay, right. And the last one. Back in the late 1990s, I decided to sing for God and under the evening stars. We live in a rural area, so I just sang all the songs that made me feel closer to God. Yay, I love that. I felt a feeling of being surrounded by love. After I finished, I looked up to our roof, at the rooftop, and I saw a tall figure surrounded by a warm yellow-white glowing light. Then this light being flew off and up toward the stars. I ran in excitedly to tell my mom. Oh, I love these stories. There will be more of these kind of stories anyway. So I want to wish everyone a majorly wonderful Thanksgiving. And be safe and happy, and maybe you have your own angel story. Oh, I forgot one little tiny more story here. Well, there is a very short story, but my grandpa had seen an angel. He was sitting in church one time, and he looked up at the corner, and he saw an angel. Just wanted to have that in. Anyway, so have a fabuloso, happy Thanksgiving day. And over and out.